The 10th of September 2025 is a day that will go down in history, a day that shocked the world and a day that divided millions. Charlie Kirk, a son, a husband and a father, was assassinated at a Utah college campus where he had forged a huge following for himself in debating students. The assassin, a child. Maybe not legally, but in my opinion, when it comes to the lack of real adult life experience. The reaction, something that I have never witnessed in my lifetime, with so many people celebrating the death of a family man. But this developing story is so much more than one man using a brutal and fatal way to silence a man whose views on life differed to his and many others. In today's video, we will be discussing Charlie Kirk, his beliefs, his assassination, his suspected killer, and the potential ripple effect that could be seen in years to come. This is the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
You can argue whether that was a correct invocation, right?
But that's irrelevant. The Supreme Court has now said no more, so there will be no more.
So before we get into this episode, what I will say is that this is an incredibly tough one to talk about. And what we will say is that this is a politically charged, sort of episode.
Yeah.
And there are strong views around the case, right? And what I would ask all of you guys and girls that are watching is just be kind to each other, both in the comments and when you're watching this video. Just always remember that, because understandably, this case has caused a lot of frustration and a lot of anger in the community. So we'll just say that.
And as usual, we have been inundated with requests to cover this ongoing case. So, as we always try to do, we give you guys exactly what you want.
What we will also say, right, is that violence is never the solution to these sort of things. And talking about these issues and having debates is almost the most important part of society to be able to do this. Now, Joey and I might not necessarily agree in this episode about what we feel about the man or the politics around it, or indeed you guys might not agree with what we have to say in the episode. But again, just remember this, just try and be as kind as you possibly can when talking about it. We're going to try and be as sensitive as we can around this case. And remember more than anything that, as Joey said in his intro, this is a real life person that has been murdered and assassinated, who leaves behind, a loving wife and kids as well, and obviously parents and everything. So there's so much sensitivity around this. So just bear that in mind. And when we're talking about the assassination itself, we'll try and be as sensitive as we possibly can. Bearing in mind, there's so much in the public eye right now, which I think should never have been in the public eye to start off with. And before we do get into it, we're just going to say, Joey and I are just normal blokes. We're not experts in US politics. We're not experts in these issues, but we're going to try and do the best that we can.
And what is actually interesting about this case is the fact that we weren't on the ground per se, but we were in America when this happened. So we were seeing reactions live in the flesh rather than just what we saw on the internet and stuff like that. So it really was an interesting time, wasn't it?
This is the thing, we were in Vegas at the time, which is, relatively close to Utah. And, we were on the street, we were seeing people with open carries, we were seeing people with guns. And as two English blokes, we don't often get exposed to that element of US society. And so, being on the ground, bearing in mind this was an ongoing case when we were actually there, it hit us maybe more so than if we were just sat at home in England.
Can I tell you something else that, just coincidental, obviously, but really, really strange for myself? Obviously, neither me or you have ever shot a gun before.
No.
We went and shot guns the day before, I believe, the assassination, didn't we?
Yeah.
For the first time. I shot a gun for the first time, and it really made me feel like I had a little bit more understanding, the fact that I was there and the fact that we had shot guns for the first time. That's my first time ever holding a firearm.
Yeah, and the power of them, I think, was my immediate reaction. I actually didn't even shoot a gun, right? But I was in the room when it happened, and bloody hell, it is a visceral experience being anywhere near that. When you first heard the news, I think I said to you something had happened, and you said, I bet I know who that is. I bet I know who it's heard.
Yeah.
Which is why did you think that? And did you know that much about Charlie Kirk?
No. So I didn't know a great deal about Charlie Kirk, because when people said Charlie Kirk, the name, me, right? I get punched in the face for a living half the time, right? I'm not very good with names, but I'm brilliant with faces. Like I'll know a face or whatever. When you said that someone had been assassinated, I can't tell you. Like, it was just a gut feeling. It was just a gut feeling. I thought, it's gonna be the guy. It's gonna be that guy that talks at college campuses and stuff like that. And obviously within a matter of seconds, you confirmed to me that it was.
And I think what we need to say before we really do get into this and tell you a little bit more about who Charlie Kirk was, we've got to put our hands up and just say, to be fair, we're not really in the discourse and the ecosystem of, you know, knowing that much about him. Like, I have to put my hands up and say, I hadn't watched any of the TikToks. I hadn't seen these interviews with college campuses because, again, like I'm focusing on UK stuff, or I'm trying to keep out of the political realm because quite frankly, we're busy enough and we're trying not to worry about politics too much. Yeah. But I didn't know that much about it, but at least you had seen some of the videos.
Yeah, I think for the American viewers, I think a lot of you, in fact, maybe the majority of you will know this, but politics is something that is at the forefront of Great Britain at the moment. London, there's been, you know, demonstrations, marches, things like that. It's headline news every single day at the moment. And as two blokes that, let's be honest, like we like to keep our spirits up, don't we, really? We like to focus on positive things and whatnot. And I know that some people might say, well, that's ignoring the rest of the world, but that's just the way that we like to live our life. I'm a family man. I want to give off good energy to my family and stuff like that. And I feel like the topic of politics can be very depressing at times as a UK resident living inside the UK. So it is something that I try and steer away from. However, I personally wasn't a fan of Charlie Kirk, nor did I dislike Charlie Kirk. I didn't really have much of an opinion on him, but I will admit to one thing, and that is that your algorithm on social media apps, I believe, is very good at tracking what you want. I believe if you want to know about someone, have a little look at their explore page. Now, if you look at my explore page, it's probably going to be mostly boxing, and maybe the odd woman thrown in there here and there, right? But it's probably going to be mostly boxing, football, women, stuff like that, right? And one thing I know is that Charlie Kirk was someone that did constantly pop up on my explore page and when I would be scrolling. And the reason for that is the algorithm obviously realised that I subconsciously was enjoying watching debates. I do like to watch these sort of things. What I don't like is someone shouting over someone else and arguments and stuff like that. And I didn't really feel, for the most part of the content that I have watched, that it was like that. So I definitely had taken an interest in it. But as I say, to clarify my stance on it, I wasn't a follower of his. I didn't follow him on any form of social media or anything like that. It was just something that came up on my algorithm and something that I, like millions and millions of others, found interesting. Yeah,
and look, when we've done our research since, we've realised quite how influential Charlie Kirk was and quite what a huge impact he made on US society, on politics, on young people, the way that they thought and believed. So why don't I tell you a little bit now about who Charlie Kirk was and a bit more about his background. Charlie Kirk was born on the 14th of October 1993 in a town called Arlington Heights, Illinois. His father, Robert, was an architect who actually worked on Trump Tower. Don't know if you knew that, Joey. There you go. So his mother, Catherine, was a former trader who later worked as a mental health counsellor. And Charlie actually had one younger sister as well. Charlie was actually very politically active as early as middle school, and he volunteered to work on Mark Kirk's successful 2010 Senate campaign. And interestingly, no relation to Charlie Kirk.
I was going to say, is that a relation?
No, he's literally just worked on a guy's campaign and he was successful in getting in there. So he got into the Senate as a Republican. So again, amazing experience for someone that is so young. And I think that's a bit of a theme actually with Charlie Kirk. He was very much a high achiever at a very young age. As a high school senior, Charlie got his first ever media appearance on Fox Business after writing an essay for Breitbart News that alleged that there was some liberal bias in high school texts. In 2012, 2012, Charlie actually applied to the United States Military Academy at West Point. Effectively, that is like an officer training school. That's the equivalent to Sandhurst in the UK. But this application was rejected and Kirk never actually joined the military. So even though he was then accepted to Baylor University, which is a really good university in America, Charlie chose to enroll in a community college. But he dropped out actually after just a month of studying, and he did that to prioritize his burgeoning political career, which was highly influenced, his decision, by his mentor Bill Montgomery, who said that Charlie had an entrepreneurial gift. In May 2012, Kirk and Montgomery founded Turning Point USA, and Charlie at this point was still only 18 years old. This organization actually focused on young people, and Charlie's mission was described as advocating for free markets and limited government. This organization grew incredibly quickly. They actually had thousands of chapters all over the United States, which is amazing to say he was so young and had so much sort of influence on the country.
Yeah, I mean, I know what I was doing at 18, 19 years old, and it wasn't influencing people at all.
It wasn't
anything along those
anything
lines.
like that. I have to say, the power that this guy had and his skill in bringing people together was extensive, and to say that's for someone so young is amazing, I have to say. So what you might know is that we keep talking about this thing called space goods, and for good reason, Joey, because basically half our families are on this stuff as well, aren't they?
Yeah, so none of my family ever watched my content really before I did any true crime, right?
Disgrace, by the way.
Once we started doing true crime stuff, they all started loving it, and they've all started loving the space goods products.
And that's because we've been having the rainbow dust and the astro dust. The rainbow dust is the thing that basically gives you energy and helps you create the best part of your day, but also the astro dust is the thing that Joe and I take before we go to sleep, which helps you have a really good night's sleep. And I'm sure that's helping right now, Joe.
It's helping better than I would be having with a newborn in the house.
But these guys have released a present for your newborn, and it's the glow dust.
Look at that.
Look at that. This is an all-in-one collagen and mushroom super blend, and it's crammed with over 35 scientifically backed ingredients to support 6 key health factors to help you feel and look amazing. So yeah, with just one scoop of this little beauty, you can get more energy. That's thanks to things like B vitamins, which you keep going on about all the time, don't you?
I have been getting more energy from space goods, yeah.
Yeah. What about immunity and resilience? You're very rarely ever sick or unwell. Do you think that could be as part of it?
Listen, I'm the man that can sink 10 pints and then still get up to record the kickoff. So
sounds like you need some antioxidants, which it also has. And then there's also lots of stuff in there to help with your gut health as well. They've actually got 2 core ingredients, which are called Actibio and Livox, which actually help reduce bloating and aid with smoother digestion. But it doesn't end there. The stuff in Glow Dust also helps with your hormone balance with things like red algae. Sounds exciting. But it's not just that. You also get to age beautifully, because Joey, unfortunately, as you guys know, is over 41 now. So as you can see, he looks incredibly good for it. And I know that you will love the taste of this stuff because it comes in a beautiful berry flavor. If you thought that your squash tasted good, you wait till you try that stuff. And if you want to pick up Glow Dust for yourself, there is a link in the description below. And all you have to do to get 20% off is use our code JoeyJosh. It is that simple. And what I recommend, if you do want to pick up Glow Dust for yourself, is to pick up the starter kit. You can get that for just £39. It includes a whisk, a spoon, and this beautiful flask for yourself. So hit the link in the description and let's get back into the video. And this impact was so significant that he actually became a key figure in the Make America Great Again movement, which again is attributed to Donald Trump. And he was also key in getting that young Republican youth vote to get Trump back into the presidential seat in 2024. And his impact didn't just end at getting Trump into the White House. He also had a key part in actually electing the cabinet members of Donald Trump's cabinet, which is just absolutely crazy. Not only that, key officials as well. The power that this guy had was extensive, and the influence that he had. And what Kirk became famous for, and his organization Turning Point USA, which I've detailed earlier on, was these college campus debates. So what he would do is he would go into college campuses, he would speak to students, and he would really question their views. Obviously, students tend to be more left-leaning when they come out of high school and that sort of thing. And what the Republican Party hadn't done for a very long time was mobilize young people. And through content garnering millions and millions of views in terms of these debates that Charlie Kirk would publicize on his platforms and also would be shared on other platforms as well, he actually managed to engage with lots of young people. And Trump really felt that that impact helped his campaign and getting elected into office, and helped and thought that that would make an impact in his future campaigns as well.
Well, I personally do think that he did have an instrumental role in Trump being re-elected. But one of the main things that, you know, being a family man myself, that I want to come to first is the fact that Charlie Kirk was a family man. He was a husband. He had both a daughter and a son. And here's a clip of him actually speaking about his experiences of being a family man.
I'm super blessed. I have the best wife in the world. We have an amazing life. Building a family is the coolest thing ever. And my prayer for all of you is that you one day can do that. That's so cute. It's honestly the most joyful thing. And I've had some pretty amazing experiences. I've been very, very blessed. And the greatest joy I've ever had is coming home to my little daughter running up to my leg. There's nothing that even comes close to it. Not flying on Air Force One, not meeting with presidents. That pales in comparison to your little girl coming up and squeezing your leg.
That's actually him talking on a podcast that typically is known for having OF models and stuff like that on, would you say?
So.
And one of the things that I kind of respect about that is the fact that he was a man that was willing to speak to anyone. You know, there would be certain people that, because of their faith, their religion, their position and things like that, wouldn't even engage in conversation with certain people. And that's one thing that I think that Charlie Kirk did do. I personally rated Charlie Kirk as someone who was very, very good at debating. And I want to clarify what I actually mean by that. My interpretation on debating well, I would say the fact that on almost every video I've watched of him, he allows the people he engages with to speak. He asks them questions and waits for responses. He approaches discussions from different angles, often using real life comparisons. And for the most part, I believe that he was able to show people respect even when in complete disagreement. One line that I remember hearing a lot myself from Charlie Kirk when he would speak to these people at these college campuses was okay, we have clarity, but not agreement. And I think that's quite powerful, because I think that there are definitely figures and politicians and stuff like that in the UK, in America, and all over the world who don't approach things like that and don't understand that, okay, we have clarity and not agreement. And I think that what that does is creates a clearer footpath to be able to debate and to talk things through. And I think that's very, very healthy. However, there are many incidents and debates that completely went against many other beliefs. And we're going to get into those later when we try and establish a motive for his killing. But first, let's get into the day of the assassination.
So before we get into the details of this, again, what I would say is we're going to try and be as sensitive as we possibly can. And again, I'm going to omit certain things and not go into a great amount of detail, because like a lot of you, I think you will have seen the images and the videos from this day. And I think, speaking personally, I think I'd be traumatized from seeing those videos for a very long time. I wish I hadn't seen them. So again, in respect to Charlie Kirk's family, in respect to everyone that was there at this event, we're going to, be sensitive in terms of the way that we describe it.
Can I just say one thing, by the way? I was shocked that the videos that circulated were so easily accessible, and I didn't go looking for them. Neither did you.
No.
I know you didn't, because I was with you. They were flooded across our timeline, across, we're not going to name them, but every social media app, by the way.
Yep.
And I just find that baffling, like absolutely baffling.
I feel like 4 or 5 years ago, that might not, I feel like the censorship might have been a little bit more aggressive on social media. And yeah, as you say, you couldn't go on to any platform without seeing it almost straight away. And it was terrifying. to be honest with you. So let me take you to September the 10th. Charlie Kirk was actually traveling to a university campus in Utah, in Orem. This is the town that it was in. And actually, this was the first outdoor event of what he called the American Comeback Tour. And, you know, he did these all the time. This was like one season of these events. And basically what these events were designed to do was mobilize young conservatives and, again, have these debates with different types of people to basically get to the core of core issues that Charlie Kirk wanted to communicate. And again, he did this incredibly well. And again, you've seen how, you know, divisive and how sort of controversial the video clips were and how many views they actually achieved. But his appearance at this event was not without controversy, and there was actually a petition that was signed by the students that actually got over 1,000 signatures asking Charlie Kirk to not actually attend the event. They didn't want him anywhere near the campus, and this actually went to the university level, the board level of the university, and the university allowed the event. So there were 3,000 students, faculty, everyone that was in, at the event that day. And they flooded what was like an outdoor amphitheatre and courtyard. So you've got buildings all around it, and effectively you've got a big open area where Charlie Kirk was sat right in the middle underneath a marquee, because, my God, he sits out for these talks sometimes for 4 or 5 hours, needed to be shielded by the sun. And again, those marquees actually had the sort of the slogans, which were, the American Comeback Tour, and obviously his other slogan, which was "Prove Me Wrong." And that was the sort of the premise of all of his debates. The debates actually started around 12 p.m. that day, and it started very normally indeed. Kirk engaged with students, and around 12:20, a student named Hunter Kozak stepped up to ask Kirk some questions. He started off with asking Kirk about mass shootings in the United States. Kozak actually asked, "Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters in the last 10 years?" Kirk responded, "Too many." And then Kozak followed that question up by asking how many mass shooters there were in total in that period. And then Kirk's final words were counting or not counting gang violence. And then at 12:23, as Kirk was answering that question, a single gunshot rang out. The footage from this aftermath, as we've said, was spread all over social media, and pretty much the entire world saw what happened almost immediately. What was clear was that a bullet had struck Kirk in the neck, and he had immediately lost a considerable amount of blood. He was treated at the scene and then also rushed straight to hospital. Doctors actually tried to save Charlie Kirk's life, but unfortunately they were unable to do so. And it was President Donald Trump that actually announced to the world that Charlie Kirk had passed away, and that was at about 2:40 on that day.
And the information that police on the ground had to work with at the time was sparse, but at the same time, we knew that it was a single shot. It was likely a single assassin, and we knew that he would still be very close to the proximity. And it didn't take long at all for the police to apprehend a man. Straight away, at the scene of the crime, a man quickly and loudly confesses and is detained by police. This man is 71-year-old George Zinn. Reports vary, but the general consensus was that George Zinn was shouting about the fact that he was the one that had shot Charlie Kirk, that the police needed to arrest him, and actually even that the police needed to shoot him. Now, locals very, very quickly, once images started circulating on social media, recognized George Zinn, and he was a man that had racked up around 25 prior criminal charges, ranging from trespassing to disturbing the peace. However, this was nowhere near as open and shut as we first thought. George Zinn was not the assassin. However, it's now been heavily reported that once being investigated, police have now charged Zinn with offences in relation to possession and distribution of indecent images of children. So based on the limited information that we have on George Zinn so far, as this is still a developing story, it's assumed that he's very much against what Charlie Kirk stood for. However, not allegedly against the abuse of children.
Now, there are some conspiracy theories about this, and potentially there is an allegation that he might have done this to help the actual attacker get away in time and be able to escape. Do you believe anything about that?
I think it's likely. I think it's likely, to be honest, because why? I mean, look, we've seen the footage. He was shouting, telling the police to shoot him, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, he might have been in that frame of mind where he wanted to take his own life or inadvertently have his life taken. But at the same time as it does appear that maybe he saw that as an opportunity to be able to help the actual assassin get away. Now, that doesn't lead me to believe that he knew the assassin or that he had any involvement with it. If I had to take a guess, a stab in the dark, I would say it was a opportunistic sort of seizing of the moment type thing. What about yourself?
It's really difficult to discern motivations for this. Like when I heard this actually happened, well, initially, can I be completely honest? Initially, I thought this was the guy. When I remember seeing the coverage, and I'd be like, "Well, he's just confessed to the murder. You know, this must be the guy. Why else would you do it? It doesn't make any sense otherwise." And then I'm sort of wrapping my head around why he would do it. I do just think he might be one of these people that just wants a bit of attention.
That's the thing, yeah. And you say, why else would he do it? We get into this when we talk about the reaction later. There are probably, I was about to say multiple, I don't know what word to even use for this, but there are a lot of people that would have wanted the assassin to get away. There are a lot of people that were there to debate Charlie Kirk in, you know, a civil fashion, yeah. But there were a lot of people that I've seen that have debated Charlie Kirk in a not so civil fashion, that have thrown water over him and stuff like that, and eventually, you know, assassinated him.
Let's just say this right before we go too much further. The solution to any of these problems, even if you would disagree with people fervently, is not violence, not throwing water on people, not anything way more serious than that, like there has been in this. The solution is to have a conversation with people, because quite frankly, you might change people's minds. If you've got a different perspective on things, you might change people's minds, or you might be educated yourself. Like, you've got to have these debates. In fact, a healthy debate is a key part of a society, a democratic society.
Do you know, this is actually why, when I speak about my algorithm, this is why, and this is a conversation I've had with you so many times before, like, they used to try and teach me things in school, and I think a little bit like Charlie Kirk, I didn't finish school. Do you know what I mean? I left school quite young. And I think like a lot of the stuff that I was maybe not interested in later life, I found myself becoming more interested in. And I think I've subconsciously done it. And that is why a lot of his videos were coming up on my algorithm and stuff like that, because I am very much open to debate, to have my mind changed, to have my eyes opened on certain things. And yeah, I think that in watching a lot of the content that we'll go on to talk about and that we've since digested, I think that, you know, my opinions have massively changed on certain things, not just to do with Charlie Kirk, but just, you know, in life in general.
I don't think you can fully form your political beliefs without understanding the perspectives of people that are different from you. People that have differing views. Like, again, this isn't sort of right left. This is any part of the spectrum. There'll be specific issues in which I fervently disagree with someone, right? But I'll still hear them out. I'll still hear what they've got to say, because, you know, maybe I'm wrong. Anyone that thinks they've got all of the answers doesn't have the answers. Because all of these issues that we're talking about, the political issues that we're discussing, are incredibly complicated. And the key thing about them is they don't have a clearly defined correct answer, because they're based on the opinion of millions of people. That's what it's based on.
Exactly. So there is no right answer. But what we do know now is, although we have a man in custody, although we have, if the allegations are to be true, a man that I believe needs to spend significant jail time and time behind bars now, we still have the assassin at large, don't we?
Yeah, is he still in police custody? Do you know the answer to this?
George Zinn.
Yeah.
At the time of recording, I do believe so.
Let's talk about the next phase of this, which was obviously avoiding these red herrings and actually trying to get to the actual assassin and to try and find what actually happened. Obviously, what was key as part of this is that the FBI were now scrambling, because what they'd done is they'd let the assassin go. He or she was able to get out of the immediate vicinity of the area, and effectively a manhunt began. You know, you would think, in something as high profile as this, with the amount of police that were there, who, by the way, I think at these things, there were a lot of police that had to be available and free, because they were controversial moments. There's a lot of people gathering in one place.
I mean, there were, but he didn't have is it the CIA? FBI. He didn't have like the FBI protection that, say, Donald Trump has when he speaks in public and things like that. But there were definitely police presence there and whatnot, and for valid reason.
But you've also got to remember, like, again, to put this into context, there was we've seen a lot of mobile phone footage, and again, you know, going back to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, you saw so many different camera points, because now everyone has a camera in their pocket, and we saw in that case, just like this case, there was footage of people crawling around where they shouldn't be, you know, and you'd think there would be a vantage point of this, and you think there'd be someone that would see something, and we'll get into that now, because let's talk about how they actually did this search. So the first piece of evidence they actually found was there was a bolt action rifle that was actually discovered in a forest area. It was wrapped in a towel, and it had a high profile scope actually on it. So again, this was almost immediately described as the murder weapon. Like, people found it straight away, and this was something that was incredibly concerning to just be lying around in the general vicinity of the area, and that had DNA on it. So again, the police take that into custody, the FBI take that into custody, and they immediately start looking at that as a key piece of evidence.
Not only that, they started surveilling CCTV footage of the surrounding buildings and stuff like that. And it was quite obvious that it was going to have come from a rooftop of a surrounding building. And like you say, everyone has a phone in their mobile pocket, and so many different videos were popping up where actually like multiple figures were potentially being seen on rooftops, things like that, which had speculation of, you know, was this a single assassin? Was there third party involvement and whatnot? But the CCTV was another key point in tracking down the assassin, wasn't it?
Exactly that. So there's various different pieces of evidence that all piece together to be able to actually find the assassin. So the CCTV, not just from the college campus, but obviously from people's phones. I've actually seen a video of someone, you know, on someone's phone where they've seen a guy crawl up onto the roof and go, this is weird, this is unusual, and I'm just taking this just in case something happens, you know, and that person was obviously had a sixth sense, because this was very weird that someone would lie prone, crawl on a rooftop around some of these events, especially when, you know, you've got high caliber rifles that are in people's hands, you know, all over the United States. So, you know, that was something really weird. The next piece that I've seen in terms of the evidence of the case was actually leading back from the rifle. So obviously you've got the rifle, you've got the casings, which we've also discovered that had, you know, engravings on them, and we'll talk about that a bit more in a second, but actually things that were actually inscribed on those casings, which were found near the rifle. But obviously what you do once you find that rifle is you trace the steps back. So while the guys at the FBI are going through all of this CCTV footage, they actually managed to get footprints from the roof or from the general area that then led down towards this forest area. And what they were able to do was take a footprint from that and identify that the assailant was wearing Converse shoes. So again, that's clearly to say, linking evidence all together. They also found on the roof of the building that there was DNA evidence there. So there was a palm print, a forearm print as well. There was also a screwdriver that had DNA on it as well. So again, police are taking all of that DNA, fingerprints, palm prints, and piecing that all together from there.
Ultimately, though, to speed up the process with DNA evidence, you need someone that's been arrested and had their fingerprints and DNA and that put on record before, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And up to this point, what was clear, even though they had all of this evidence, even though they've seen some of the CCTV footage, they didn't actually have anyone in custody, or even really a name of a suspect that they thought was going to be the person that was the assailant. Now, there's an interesting part of this case now that comes from the FBI. Now, Kash Patel is I believe, the director of the FBI, right? He's the guy that does all of the press conferences. You've seen him in the press conference, various press conferences afterwards. He actually did a tweet that said that they'd captured the person.
Yeah.
And I think that was obviously, what's his name? George Zinn.
That was George Zinn, yeah.
Yeah, George Zinn, sorry. So I think that was the first person that they thought. But there was also another arrest at the time around this case. So again, the FBI thought that they had the person involved. But Kash Patel actually later had to sort of pull that tweet back. So at this point, we don't have the person. They've gone through the CCTV footage. They try and use FBI techniques to enhance the image and find the face of the person. The imaging didn't work as well as they thought it was going to. So at this point, they actually release the images to the public. And they say, if you know anything about this person, it's a person of interest. They didn't necessarily say that this was the assailant, but they did say they wanted to find this person very quickly. And they put $100,000 reward to finding this person.
And this is the part where in modern day society, it is very, very hard to get away with anything, because with the internet, with the powers of the people that will be looking on the internet, it's very, very easy, and very quickly there were sort of Discord messages being swapped round, there were Telegram messages being swapped round, and this was something that the FBI were able to tap into, wasn't it?
Exactly that. So the next point in this case that we've got to discuss is that in St. George, Utah, a lady turns on her TV and she sees images of someone that she recognizes. This lady was called Amber Robinson, and she thought that the person looked very much like her son, Tyler Robinson. So much so that she actually told her husband. They had a chat and they basically confronted the son together.
But it wasn't just Amber Robinson that made that connection too. There were friends of Tyler's, gaming friends that he spoke to via sort of Discord chats, Telegrams, things like that, that were actually saying, this looks a lot like you. And he was replying to them at the time saying, yep, they've got my doppelganger is trying to get me in trouble and things like that. So he was playful with the subject, some would say, but yeah, he wasn't admitting to anyone that it was him until, I think, an intervention from his parents, wasn't it?
Even so, even when they actually did that intervention, the parents spoke to him, sat him down, he initially denied it. He initially said to them that he had nothing to do with it and that it wasn't him. Now, the parents have seen the images. They have a feeling that it is him. In fact, they're sure that it is him. So they keep the conversation going, and by all accounts, they manage to sort of get it out of him, and he confesses to them at that point. Now, I have no idea what I would do as a parent in that situation. It is one of the toughest things you could possibly go through, but they did the right thing. They spoke to someone who was a family friend who was basically a former detective, and the former detective basically helped guide them to what to do next. Because quite frankly, as a citizen, like if that happened to my son or daughter right now in the UK, I'd have no idea what to do.
You would have no idea, but the clock would be ticking and you'd need to make your mind up very, very quickly. We've covered the Chris Watts case very recently, and listen, I was openly, happily, very, very critical of his parents in that case. They really, really went out on a limb to not only protect their son, or do what they felt was protecting their son, but to also downplay his deceased partner, you know, to almost put a bit of dirt on her name.
Cover it up, or try to cover it up almost.
Exactly.
They did, yeah.
Exactly. And I found that behaviour from Chris Watts' parents despicable. I found that absolutely disgusting. So the fact that his parents did go and hand him straight in to the police is, in my opinion, commendable. Now, another thing that people thought was commendable from the parents was the fact that a lot of people that would have handed him in would have taken did you say it was $100,000?
$100,000.
It was $100,000.
It's a lot of money.
Reward money.
Yeah.
And obviously the father of Tyler Robinson didn't take that money. However, there is a question to be asked here, Josh, and I suppose it's more of a moral standpoint. It's just your point of view on it. Should he have taken the money?
Well, you could do a lot of things with that money, couldn't you? What you could do is you could give that money to Charlie Kirk's family. You could give that money to organizations around keeping, politicians and public figures safe. You could do that. You could donate that money to free speech organizations. You could donate that money to so many different places that would have actually helped. But again, is the moral thing to do to just say, I'm in the wrong here. I've got to turn my son in, and I don't want any money. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want your rewards. I understand both sides of it. If it was me, can I be completely honest?
Go on.
I wouldn't have taken the money.
I would have done the opposite. I would have donated it. I would have. Listen, obviously, Charlie had accumulated wealth for himself and whatnot. So I'm not necessarily saying, and I'm not saying this, by the way, but I'm not necessarily saying that, I would have given it to his family or whatever. But I think the point you made there about like organizations, I read about an organization, had no clue about them before, by the way, called ACT, which is for preventing and stopping radicalization, basically. And this is something that is mostly aimed at stopping and preventing the radicalization of both left and right wing and anything else, and a lot of this done online. That's an organization that I feel that maybe could have benefited from that, or like you say, safety measures, things like that. So I think that the money could have been well spent, but at the same time, I don't really have much feeling as to what his dad did with the money.
I think at that period of time, the money is the last thing that's on his mind, to be fair. So they actually go and take Tyler Robinson to the police station, and it's actually 33 hours after the assassination that he's formally arrested and surrenders to the police.
But despite the fact that you've now seen pictures and a few vague family details about Tyler Robinson, what do we actually know? Well, he was born on April 16th, 2003 in Utah. As Josh previously mentioned, his parents had close relationships with law enforcement officers, and Tyler had 2 younger brothers. He grew up as a Christian in a Christian household, and for the most part had a very comfortable and wholesome life with a lot of stability. And one thing that's undeniable from the social media trail left behind from his mother's Facebook page and other accounts is that Tyler Robinson was the apple of his mother's eye. So much so that she described her son as a genius. And some could even debate that maybe he was mollycoddled a little bit by his mother. There was one certain post that I read that said something along the lines of, although he had achieved the grades to be able to attend, I think it was more or less any university that he wanted, she was really desperate for him, wasn't she, to stay local to his parents. Here's actually a video of him receiving and reading out a letter that shows that his application had been successful for his college.
Congratulations, you have been selected to receive the Resident Presidential Scholarship from Utah State University. The value of this scholarship is approximately $32,000. This scholarship is available for 4 years or 8 semesters.
Now, just quickly, off the back of that, just my interpretation, little bit of a socially awkward type vibe to you?
I think a lot of people have described him as a little bit of a socially awkward kid, to be honest with you, yeah.
Well, actually, it's very, very interesting because I was down the rabbit hole last night and I was having a little look, and a couple of his sort of former classmates from school have actually spoke out about him, and very, very interesting. This is what one of them had to say.
I'm not gonna say I knew this kid really well. I didn't know him very well at all, but I definitely saw him for like 3 straight years in high school, and the best way I could describe him is just like a Reddit kid. I don't know, I feel like you were in high school around that same time, and even probably now, like 2018, and then like those kinds of kids, but that's exactly what he was. All I'm gonna say is this is the kind of shit that happens when you spend way too much time online, and all of a sudden your beliefs are all the way this way or all the way this way, and you do some dramatic shit to please these people that are not your friends. This internet shit is seriously no joke.
Right, so I've become a massive fan of Reddit, but only since starting this true crime podcast. Like, I literally, you're in disgust at that, aren't you?
I'm not. I love Reddit.
Yeah, no. You're in disgust that I've only just found out about Reddit.
I am.
I'm about, what, 15 years late to the party,
You are a joke.
I?
I don't know why you've never discovered it, because, you know, as you guys and girls know, Joey is the true crime fanatic.
Yeah.
And I have to say that Reddit is almost like the home of any website in the entire world for true crime.
It is right up my street. I don't know why I've become like, I've gone through this so long of my life looking at loads of stuff on the internet, but never really visiting Reddit. I'm not saying I'd never been on it before, but like, I didn't use it to the extent I use it in preparation for our cases and stuff like that now. But what I don't know is what exactly the terminology a Reddit kid is, because that is how his classmate there described him. What would you interpret that as?
Well, I'm not an Urban Dictionary expert. You know, I know you used to love going into Urban Dictionary.
I thought we
back
called
in the
you
day.
Dictionary Corner. Dictionary Corner.
Dictionary Corner, yes. Urban Dictionary, no. But yeah, no, a Reddit kid, I think what this trope sort of solidifies really is that someone is perpetually online, that is surfing Reddit left, right, and centre, and getting their culture and their beliefs from Redditors. And, you know, Reddit has so many good parts to it, but I have to say there are also elements of Reddit that are dark corners, and you can get involved in weird topics, weird niches. You can develop weird habits. You can develop different ways of communicating via Reddit. And I think what this signified was that people thought that he was perpetually online. And I think that element of being perpetually online and perpetually, you know, in these sort of like forums isn't necessarily the best thing for your mental health or the way that you develop or your own beliefs.
Not only that, you get a lot of people that aren't getting the attention, the gratification out in the real world, and then they'll go online and listen, they'll barefaced lie and say, oh, I like we found with George Zinn, you know, I knew this guy, I did this and whatever. And eventually, as you scratch beneath the surface a little bit, you realise that a lot of these people aren't telling the truth. But, however, some of his alleged classmates, when interviewed, said that when they knew him and his family were diehard Trump fans. Now, at first, you think, okay, alleged classmate, could be a spin to try and sell a few stories, could be something like that.
You also don't necessarily know a kid's political beliefs at that age.
No.
Necessarily.
This claim, however, has since been backed up by Tyler Robinson's grandmother, who said the whole family are Trump supporters. However, although I personally take Reddit with a pinch of salt, a lot of news stations have anonymously interviewed classmates that they have been able to confirm. Through watching through these and reading through the statements, I can't find a single one saying that he was a violent or a hateful person. They described him as an avid gamer, somewhat of a shy character, but not to the point where he wouldn't speak to you, more just so to the point where you had to engage him in conversation. And most importantly, despite that one video that we showed you of a classmate of his saying that he was a Trump supporter, there wasn't any accounts from any school friends of his that he was even known to be into politics.
Yeah, again, at this sort of age, I do feel like you're forming your political identity. I remember I actually did politics A-level, right? And I feel like at 16, I had no idea who I would have voted for. I had no idea of the political system at all. So I feel like you're still, as much as your parents would have some beliefs, that doesn't mean they're your beliefs, right? So yeah, maybe
what
you
did
sort
you
of. Sorry,
what did you do?
What A-levels did I do?
No, like voting wise.
When I was 16.
Yeah, did you just not vote?
Well, 16 you can't vote. You can only vote when you're 18. I think 18 was the first.
I think 16 you can vote in local elections.
Don't think you can.
Oh, okay.
I don't think you can. They're trying. The Labour government in the UK are trying to bring that in now for 16-year-olds to vote.
Okay. Can I tell you what I did?
The first vote was when I was 18.
Yeah. Can I tell you what I did?
Come.
What do you think I did?
What party you voted for?
No. In terms of like, did I vote? Did I not vote? What do you think?
Can I be honest? My assertion would be when you were that age, you didn't vote.
Incorrect. I just voted for whatever
your mum and dad did.
Yeah.
Which is very common.
Yeah.
Very common indeed.
Yeah. And potentially, much like the person we're talking about, you may grow and you may form different beliefs. Your beliefs may massively change. Do you know what I mean? One thing we do know, though, is there is no record of him ever actually voting, despite being able and being of age to vote. Now, although living in the state of Utah, Tyler was actually around a 3.5-hour drive away from where the Charlie Kirk event took place that day. And at the time of the event, he's actually living with a roommate who is in the process of transitioning at the moment and has since been cooperating with police. Now, being that his family were religious and by all accounts that we've heard so far, way more right than left wing, you would imagine that maybe this could have made Tyler feel a little bit out of place. Maybe it could have made him feel uncomfortable in his own skin, but again, this is just speculation. What we do know is that the night before the assassination, he had a family dinner in which he discussed Charlie Kirk and was alleged to have said that he was full of hate and wanted to spread that hatred. He was involved in multiple Discord chats and even joked with people in there about being the killer in the aftermath of Kirk's death. And after admitting to what he had done, he then told his trans partner that he needed to silence the hatred of Charlie Kirk. Now, one of the things that we touched on earlier were that there were engravings into the bullets, and there were multiple engravings. But one of the things that I found ironic, but I think you're about to explain to me and, you know, open my mind a little bit on this, was that one of the bullets said, "If you're reading this, you are gay, LMAO." Now, listen, considering that this man took someone's life allegedly with one of the bullets, this man was obviously using these bullets to cause maximum fatal damage. I thought it was weird that he would use what I interpret as a homophobic slur on the bullet.
Yeah, what we're seeing by the casings, obviously there were various different messages that were inscribed within them. So again, this isn't like a jovial thing to him. Like, he had spent a lot of time in cultivating these casings, and I really do believe wanted them to be found. You know, with the way that he actually did this and engraving these messages on them. What I think these messages show, because when you look at them as a whole, they really paint a picture of someone who was chronically online. They're all memeable. They're all sort of like from this sort of like Reddit internet culture. They are really terminology that you would use in these internet forums. They're memes, like to be used. So I don't know if he meant it. I don't know if he meant it literally. I think he meant it more as a troll, really. And this is language that's used by trolls all the time.
That's just our speculation.
Yeah, we don't know what we're thinking.
We don't know what this guy was thinking. That's just our speculation. But one thing I do know is, with the timeline that we've put together, if it is to be believed, and this is not things you read on Reddit and things like that, this is from family accounts and stuff like that that's come out since, it sounds like Tyler Robinson was either radicalized or changed his beliefs very, very quickly over a short amount of time, about a 1 year period, really.
Yeah, exactly that. And again, we don't necessarily know the circumstances around that change, and what we'll only be doing really at this point is speculating. But what we can know for certain is that he became very violent very quickly. And again, unless you tell me otherwise, I don't remember seeing anything about a violent history of Tyler. I don't remember seeing any other criminal records.
Have you seen the police dash cam footage?
I've seen the police dash cam footage. What was this? What can you explain to me what this was for? Do you know what the actual incident was about?
Basically, he hit a car. He was driving with his brother in his vehicle. He crashed into the side of a vehicle. However, it was kind of disputed. There were two different sides of the story. Tyler was saying it was the other vehicle's fault, I believe, and the driver of the other vehicle was saying that it was Tyler's fault. We can't, you know, there's not too much to read into that, but one thing it does do is it's another piece of video where we're able to actually analyze, interpret, and just observe a little bit of Tyler's behavior, body language, things like that, which again, to me, came across as a little bit socially awkward. At the same time, not unconfident. And this is something that's quite key here. Like, I've got friends that are socially awkward, but not unconfident. They're still confident. So you can be both things at once. And in that video, he seemed pretty confident with the police in what he was saying and how he was speaking with the police, speaking with them in a very calm manner and things like that. He wasn't getting agitated. He wasn't getting gyrated, anything like that. He was, he was pretty calm. But although at the time of recording, he's not yet been proven guilty, he has been charged with the police certain that this is the man that travelled 3.5 hours to assassinate Charlie Kirk. So now I suppose we really need to get on to what his motive would have been. Now, obviously, you could say that he's already given away his motive, which was to silence the hatred in his words. But do you think there is a certain element of what Charlie Kirk stood for, what he spoke about? Is there anything in particular that you think really motivated this man to go and carry out this act?
Yeah, so look, what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of discuss some of the things that Charlie Kirk has said in the press and on his own podcasts, his own content, and also in interviews with various other people. What I think I would say before I go into this is it's very easy to pull out quotes from individual articles without the context and the debate that was being said, and it makes someone look a lot worse than the meaning that they said it. However, what I have to make incredibly clear at this point is there are a lot of people that really were worried about Charlie Kirk's messages and his own beliefs. And again, on the other side of that, there's a lot of people that supported him and thought that everything that he was saying was correct, right? So we're not necessarily casting an aspersion either way, right, in what we're going to say, but let me delineate some things that he said. So obviously the reductive thing to sort of go to immediately now is what Charlie Kirk said about trans rights and around that issue in particular. And he likened lots of things, about this, this was genital mutilation, that trans people are, he used the word an abomination. And if we're talking about motivations of Tyler in particular, this might have been one of the things that he really disagreed with Charlie Kirk in.
I would say it's probably the most credible, to be honest.
It is, right? But I think what we've seen in these true crime cases is you can't always, while jumping to a conclusion on the most obvious thing often is correct, the simplest thing is often the answer to the solution and the problem. It might not just be this.
And that's why we have, throughout the episode, said this is a developing story. So we're open to interpretation. We know that we're going to learn more about it. And obviously, if things transpire to be completely different, then we'll cover it again. But at this moment in time, it is looking like this was a significant driving factor. Would you agree? I
think this, on the face of it, bearing in mind his partner, his roommate, his lover was, going through a transition. I think this is the most logical element of what Charlie Kirk believed and espoused that would have really annoyed Tyler and probably was the key determining factor. But it wasn't just that. There's other stuff as well.
Also, just to put this into context, I don't know this for fact, but if his family are devout Christians, like it has been alleged, then it wouldn't have just been Charlie Kirk that potentially would have shared these beliefs. If his family were devout Christians, then by the Bible, his family would have probably shared these beliefs.
And also voted for Trump as well, who,
exactly.
shares similar beliefs.
Not only that, we say Christianity, most religions would have these beliefs. So again, we don't want to go into that aspect of it, but this isn't something that there's one man in the world that believes that this is wrong and whatever. This is something that is a not only political but a religious issue, isn't it?
Exactly that. And look, what I would say here is that even though I could list out a lot of different motivations, a lot of reasons why people would be annoyed, like homophobia, potential racism, potential Islamophobia, potential anti-Semitism, potential misogyny, right? You could go through all of these different things and you could say, yes, I disagree with those things. I don't share the same views, but I'm not going to cause political violence as a result of those beliefs. And this is the thing, whether you're right, left, centrist, whatever you are, I think what the clear thing about this is, and what I hope a lot of people take from this story is, shooting people isn't the solution for these problems. Debate and healthy debate is. And what we're finding more than ever is that social media and also the political discourse at the moment is pushing people to extremes. And what we want is really to find commonality between our peers, to find, to drive our society into something better, to look after our communities and actually improve the countries that we're in. And I think this case, I very much, and we'll talk about legacy more in a minute, but I worry about the route and the direction that it's going to go now. It's going to push people further apart than bring them together.
So when we're speaking about the controversies, the things that massively riled people up and had people feeling, let's be honest, a real degree of hatred towards Charlie Kirk, most of it revolved around his comments around the trans community. A lot of it revolved around his comments about DEI, abortion, another one. And look, it's not really for me to sit here and give my opinion on these things, but like everything in life, like, you watch a movie, there's going to be characters in the movie you don't like, there's going to be characters in the movie you do like. Everyone's open to their own interpretations of different things. There are things that Charlie Kirk said that I'd say, yeah, I'd probably agree with that. There are things like, the abortions, his stance on gun laws, actually, and a lot more stuff that I didn't agree with. But despite that, there was never anything for me that he said that made me feel so strongly that I would then want to harm the man.
The last thing, regardless of anyone's political views, should be to murder someone. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all. And again, like I say, I really do feel that there's an element in society right now that we really push people to so far against each other and extremes that it's making the political discourse intelligible. It's making political discourse just difficult to even comprehend and have conversations with people. And I feel, in a weird way, I feel more afraid than ever to have a conversation with someone about things you believe or things you want in society, because it only takes one person for you to say, I really disagree with this thing, X, Y, or Z, and you're in huge trouble. Look, we make videos on YouTube, right? We talk about true crime cases. We're not politicians, nor have we ever professed to be. We try and avoid talking too much about politics.
Mate, even this episode, I've been constantly, we've been worrying about it. Do you know what I mean? Been going back and forth, can we, whatever. I don't want to speak to these. I absolutely fucking love the following we've built, and I'm so grateful now that we've got so many American viewers watching us as well. And you don't want to piss off the people that are following you, that are supporting your channel and stuff like that. But we know in life that, like anything, people have differences of opinions. But again, I think that the one thing that me and you can agree on is violence isn't the answer. Well, I live in the UK. I do not like Keir Starmer. I don't like our president. Prime Minister, sorry. Same as the president in your country. In America.
Very different, but very different politically, but don't worry.
Yeah, clearly. That's why I didn't finish school and you went to uni, eh? But this is what I'm saying, yeah? I don't like him. I don't want nothing to happen to him. I don't want no harm to come to him, anything like that. But it's just, as a person, I don't like him.
But and also, right, I think to round this up, let me just give you some statistics, right, on the state of politics right now in America, right? There's been 150 politically motivated assaults in 2025 alone. It's double what it was last year. Just, we're not even through the whole year yet. And for that to be a thing that we're even discussing when we're meant to be living in democratic societies that are free and open, really, both in America and the UK, the thing that enshrines our beliefs and our constitutions is free and open discourse, to be able to vote for who you want and to vote freely and without fear, right? And for people to be involved in this sort of crime is incredibly worrying. It actually there's more than this as well, right? There's 600 different threats and harassment incidents against local officials in 2024 in America. That's up 74% since 2022. And again, we've seen assassinations on all and assassination attempts on both the left and the right of American politics. And again, this is it's a self-perpetuating thing. Violence begets more violence. Hate begets more hate. And really, the way that the American system has been set up right now is you're either one or the other. You're blue or red. And if you're not in that side, if you're in one side, you massively disagree with the other person. This isn't debate.
Can I not just say, do you not think that the debate and the events that Charlie Kirk was putting on, I feel, was really useful for that? And I feel like there were a lot of people that saw the momentum that it was gaining and therefore were thinking, okay, it's not useful. I found it useful. I watched these videos and I do feel, like I was saying to you there, I felt more educated off of watching some of this stuff. And by the way, let me make a clear point. Not educated from Charlie Kirk, educated from both sides. Yeah. Educated from both sides, seeing two different perspectives. There were so many great debates that I saw. A lot of the viral clips that you guys will see online will normally be a debate in which Charlie Kirk wins and, you know, or is perceived to have won, and someone looks stupid, doesn't have an answer for something. But if you actually look a little bit deeper, there are so many interesting debates that he has, which really do make you question, okay, like this is really interesting, and that's maybe changed my perception on something, or changed the way I thought about something, or at least educated me on that.
One thing that I think we will say about Charlie Kirk, and I think really most people should agree on this regardless of their political beliefs, he was a very talented politician. He was a very talented sort of grouper of people's beliefs. He was a very good advocate. He was a very good community builder. He drove a huge amount of interest in the Republican movement amongst young people, which quite frankly are very difficult to motivate politically in the current world.
Well, I'm not being funny, Josh. By having the slogan "Prove Me Wrong," yeah, in my opinion, I interpret that as an encouragement of freedom of speech. Because there are certain politicians and there are certain figures and there are certain people in life who won't let people have the opportunity to prove them wrong, to challenge their views. They'll cut them off. They might make exclusive... I'm not saying Charlie Kirk didn't make any exclusive content, but he went on a lot of podcasts. He did a lot of debating and stuff. There'll be people that will make exclusive content and disable their comments. It'll be censored, you know. I feel like I live in a nation which is massively censored. That's my feeling. Josh may not feel like that, but... me and Josh, at the end of this, are going to go and have a meal and talk about something completely different because we're good mates and because we understand that people from different walks of life can have different views on different things and still get along completely normally, as we should do. But one thing I do believe is that I do believe that Charlie Kirk did stand for freedom of speech. That's something I do believe. And the fact that he advised people to challenge him was something that I think encouraged that, and that's something that I do think is right in life. We should have freedom of speech, and you know, it's I mean, you look at the way that his life ended, and it kind of proves a point there that there are a sizable amount of people that don't want freedom of speech. The exact words were, "I need to silence the hatred." But again, hatred, and I'm not saying this is mine, yours, whoever's, hatred is a perception.
I feel like this is a moment in which it could be a line in the sand in which people go, enough is enough. We've had enough of violence and you cannot endorse this in society. Or it perpetuates more and more anger and violence. And I think what I will say is that what tends to happen with these cases, irregardless of who's involved or what side they're on, the people that actually do the crimes are the people that are individuals, lone rangers, often working on the fringes of society and often aren't embodied or part of a group per se. They're the ones that are disenfranchised with the world. And I think that's a key point to make in the person that, you know, went for Trump or the person that assassinated Charlie Kirk, they're often just individuals that are taking things too far and are potentially mentally unwell as well.
I think so as well. But that leads me on to the reaction, because obviously, look, we've seen the funeral, we've seen the mourning, we've seen the tributes, and we've seen everything else. But we've also seen celebrations of this man's death. Celebrations that I've not really seen before for someone who is not a man with a criminal record, is not someone that has ever killed anyone, is not part of a terrorist organization or anything like that. So let's just have a little look here.
Yo, they got Charlie Kirk, bro. I've never been happier.
Never believe the reason I'm smiling. And it has nothing to do with Charlie Kirk. Nothing to do with Charlie Kirk.
I would say pour one out for Kirky Boy, but I don't waste good beer on little bitches.
I haven't posted on TikTok in a long time, but I'm gonna now because rest in peace, Bozo.
Okay, so watching that, how do you feel?
I don't feel like you should celebrate someone's death unless this person is a murderer, a kiddie fiddler, a serial killer, something like that.
There's been lots of people that we've talked about on this podcast that we would celebrate their deaths.
Yeah,
the really bad people that we've discussed.
Yeah, there have
criminals,
really bad people. But again, I don't know whether I'd be taking to the street with microphones celebrating those deaths.
True.
And I believe that I've just literally said that I believe in freedom of speech, right? However, if it was me personally and I was happy about this incident, I would probably either keep it to myself or I'd find like-minded individuals in a safe space to be able to do that. I think that when there are, you know, there's a family that's been left behind, there's a wife that's mourning, there's children that, you know, aren't of age yet probably to be on social media, maybe won't ever be, but potentially one day will be. And by the way, you know, these people that are celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, believe me, these people will be sent, if his children ever are on social media and ever are active on there and whatever, they will be sending those videos. They will be keeping those videos of the children's father's assassination. They'll be sending them to those people. And I think that's disgusting that they'd actually be doing that. So look, I'm all for people getting stuff off their chest. I don't personally agree with it. But again, I do agree with freedom of speech. So it's open to preference, isn't it? And the last thing I'd say in terms of my opinion is people believe that Charlie Kirk was an advocate for violence and hatred. And okay, if you believe that, that's your belief. I understand that. But that can be said about both sides, left or right. It can be said about anyone. But is the solution to assassinate all these
This is
people?
the thing, like, for everyone that's celebrating out in the streets and, you know, dancing or whatever they want to do, or even on posting on social media, imagine if that was your political hero or your idol, because it goes both ways. You know, like, again, this is the reason why I never advocate for violence and I often advocate for debate and conversation instead, because all of the people that I look up to and my role models and my political sort of, I don't know, North Stars, I would want them to be protected and safe. And that then goes to my political enemies or people that I disagree with, because again, they have the right to do so. And this is the key thing, again, that I'll just reiterate. I want to live in a society where people can speak freely, but also be safe in what they say freely. And there are lines in which you can cross where when you speak freely, you're speaking hatefully. And that's not on. Like, causing people harm and malice and also motivating people to cause harm to other people. There's a line, isn't there? Like, we all believe in free speech, but there's also a point in which it goes too far.
Well, I'm just quite old-fashioned. And to be old-fashioned and to say what I would say is there's a time and a place.
Yeah. But that's the thing is there are certain types of people that you can cause harm to by speaking ill will of them. Like, you can cause someone harm by prioritizing some views over others. You can cause harm by, you know, endangering someone with your words or encouraging hate.
Can I just say, like, because I'm very, like, conscious of how I come across it. You know why. You personally know why I felt strongly about like the celebrations and stuff like. He's a family man.
Yeah.
And listen, you can I'm sure you can say in the comments, well, this person was a family man, this person was a family man, this person was a family man. But I'm not speaking about anyone else. I'm speaking about this specific situation. I'm a family man. I'm a father. I've got a daughter. I've just welcomed a son into the world within the last week. You know what I mean? I think like it's an emotional time. Do you know what I mean? Like for everyone. And I just feel like if my kids, if that was me, and then my kids see people celebrating like my death or stuff like that, I just think that's fucking horrible.
There's a lot of elements of this that are just wrong, that leave a very horrible taste in your mouth, and in a weird way, it's hard for us as being in the UK to get into the US politics that we don't quite understand. But I have to say, the way that it has become so violent on both sides of the aisle really, really worries me. And the fact that, I mean, look, his wife did an amazing speech. I don't know, have you seen his wife's speech? She's done an amazingly heartfelt speech. She shared an amazingly heartfelt moment with an open casket where she was, saying goodbye to Charlie, which I struggled to watch, to be honest with you.
I can't watch it.
Yeah, I struggled to watch it. But what she will do is continue his legacy now, and I'm sure his kids will do as well. But the fact that they don't have a father and the fact that they don't have a husband is something that Jerry and I just can't quite reconcile, to be honest.
It's hard to get your head around. Let's go back to the killer himself, or the alleged killer, I should say. Was he helped? Because, look, there's been thousands of messages and conversations that have now been seized by the FBI, by the police that are working on this and whatnot. And some of them have been released and we've been privy to. And I could guarantee you that there are 10 times more that have not been released, that are being investigated, that are being looked at and, seen whether he was assisted in this act. And maybe this is something that will come out fairly soon in terms of third-party involvement and whatnot. Do you believe that there's any weight to the theories that he was assisted?
All you can do, because we'd never know the answer, but all you can do is you can look at the history and the way these things work, and anecdotally, without knowing the evidence, all I would say is that, as I said earlier on, I feel like a lot of these killers tend to be lone rangers, and they tend to be social outcasts, and therefore tend to struggle to maintain relationships which would enable them to have other people involved. I know for a fact that the gun used was a present from his grandfather.
It was his grandpa's rifle.
There you go. So, the fact that the murder weapon wasn't procured via any other means other than his family through, honest gift-giving ways.
I think a lot of people were saying straight away, like, hold on, what, this 22-year-old kid, like, in my perception, geeky little 22-year-old gamer boy, has took an effective shot with one hit type thing. We saw the attempted assassination on Donald Trump. He glazed his ears with it, I think. Yep. So not an effective shot. At the same time as that, and we might be able to show the footage. I'm not too sure whether we can on YouTube or not. But we went to a shooting range the other day, and I'd never fired a firearm. I hit the target straight away.
Completely different though, isn't it? You were 10 yards away from the target. This guy was on a rooftop with winds, in an open area, and he had, he took one shot. You
say it's completely different. It's not completely different though, because what did I just say? It was my first time shooting a firearm.
Whereas for Tyler, it wasn't his first time, was it?
All we can do is look back at a digital trail, and in that digital trail, we can look back and we can see multiple pictures of himself from a very young age with his brother posing with firearms, can't we? So It was something that the family were advocates of.
Yeah. And this is the thing, like, again, there are more guns in America than there are citizens. And it just shows you how ubiquitous they are. And this is the thing, like, there will be more shootings just like this because of the ubiquity of the weapons.
Can I give you my... I don't want to call it a conspiracy theory. Just something that I think is food for thought with this one. Doesn't mean I believe it. Doesn't mean I'm stating it. It's just something that has run across my mind, is that there could have been third-party involvement. I believe that when you look at the fact that Donald Trump has been elected as president on 2 separate occasions now, hasn't he?
Yep.
Many people felt like he was kind of shafted out one time. And for the American viewers who don't understand the British terminology there, that is, you know...
He feels like he won the election.
He feels like he won the election. The data
disagrees significantly.
Yeah. And we're not saying that. But what is undeniable is he's won 2 elections. Yeah. So there is an appetite for a leader with similar values that Donald Trump has. And obviously Charlie Kirk's someone that has become sort of way more conscious to us recently, as opposed to Donald Trump, who like we've all grown up knowing. I knew him from fucking Home Alone too, didn't you?
Literally.
You know what I mean?
Simpsons,
like Trump Tower, Simpsons, like we all knew Donald Trump.
The Apprentice.
I'm going to tell you this now, right? Charlie Kirk was what age did he die at?
31, I believe.
31 years old. At 31 years old, I believe that Charlie Kirk was more switched on, was a better speaker to the people, was more engaging, was more endearing to a lot of people than Donald Trump.
He was on his way to the White House.
He was, wasn't he?
Like he was doing everything that he needed to do, all of the steps. Bearing in mind, for context, most of the presidents start off life in their 60s and 70s. You have to go through a lot of politics. You have to do a lot of work before you even get anywhere near the presidency. You often have to be a vice president or, you know, involved in the cabinet to be involved there. But you have to say one thing. He was helping Trump, as I said earlier on, name the cabinet nominees, name the people that were in charge of all of the relevant positions. He was a kingmaker of sorts.
And he was way more relatable, in my opinion, than Donald Trump, in the fact that, look, there's a strong debate as to whether Donald Trump would have got his presidency if it wasn't for Charlie Kirk being able to tap into that younger audience. He was able to do that because he was able to put himself there and have open debates with them. Whereas, I'm not saying Donald Trump doesn't debate with people, but I've seen hundreds of different clips of Donald Trump and different interviews of Donald Trump where he doesn't allow people to speak. He does speak over them. He doesn't give them the respect that I think that a conversation and a debate should have. And I think that Charlie Kirk was almost the complete opposite to that.
Some of the best debates that I've seen in terms of like lyricism, being able to come back to people's points. Bearing in mind, a lot of these debates, like you've got to be quick on your toes. Like you've got to have facts and stats and, you know, relevant arguments to back up what you're trying to say very quickly. By the way, you'll laugh at me, Joe, because I was in the debate club. It's one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. By a mile.
I bet.
By a mile.
And one thing I would say is, like, when you look at the debates that Charlie Kirk was having, with social media, the sort of oh my god moments are always going to be the more viral hits, and therefore they're going to be the ones that people are going to be known for. But if you actually look at a lot of longer form content, the vast majority, I would actually say the majority of the time, the debates end very civil. They end in either agreement, disagreement, but regardless of that, Charlie Kirk would say he would agree to disagree with people. And therefore, I don't personally feel like you could look at him and say that he was purely spreading hatred without being able to give people the platform to come back and challenge that.
And this, what I will say though, to come back to you on that, because I completely agree with you, is that because this is a political discussion, there will always be people that disagree with you.
Yeah.
You know? And again, the sentiment that we're trying to say is, good. If you disagree with what he was trying to say, that's your right. There's absolutely no problem with imparting your own beliefs and making a credible argument for it and listening to other people. There's nothing wrong with it. So if you disagree, you disagree.
In terms of this episode, obviously, like I said, the messages have come in their hundreds, comments, everything. Everyone's wanted us to cover this from the second it happened. And obviously we wanted to take a little bit of time to digest it. Obviously, we were out in America in the meantime, and then I came back and had a baby. So it's been a little bit difficult.
Can we just say congratulations to Joey in the comments right now for little baby? Can we say his name on the podcast?
No.
Okay, right. But I'm just going to say this now. He's got a fantastic name.
Yeah, he's got a good name. Yeah. He's got a good name. He's got a good name. It's been one that we've tiptoed over a little bit at times in terms of like, you don't want to annoy anyone, like you said. You don't want to piss anyone off, and that's one thing that we don't want to do. And we understand that this situation, as much as I can only speak for myself, Josh, can't speak for you. As much as I firmly believe that this should not have happened and this is not okay, I understand that this has happened as a consequence of making people angry. And I don't want to make people angry. I want to make people happy. I want to produce content that people enjoy. At the same time, I want to give the people what they want. And have we had any other suggestions really over the past 7 days from people that have been messaging us, asking us to cover cases?
This is by far the most important case. You guys now, and we have to say thank you for all the support and love you give to us, but the part of that and what we must deliver in return is what you guys asked for. So
transparency.
It's been one of those things where we had a discussion about this case and we were like, do we even want to cover it? Because it's an ongoing case, it's another US case, and also it has these incredibly politically charged elements to it. And we said to each other, do you know what? We feel like we can do it right, and we feel like we can, impart what actually happened in the case in a neutral way and try to go for it. Because I have to say one thing. We do our research in all of this, and I watch YouTube videos all the time. I haven't found anyone that really has set out the case, not just talked about the events of the day, but also the stuff around it, the politics around it, and put it all into one video. So I hope we've done that with this video.
Can I tell you one thing that I never, ever, we were speaking about school earlier on, I never thought that I would be doing is sat on camera on an episode that's probably going to do, big views on YouTube and whatnot, talking about politics.
I know how the turns of tables, hey?
And turns of tables?
Yeah,
eh?
exactly.
Can I tell you one more thing?
Yeah.
I hope we don't do another episode where we're talking about politics.
Well, we're going to have to start doing some revision otherwise.
Yeah.
Aren't we? What I will say before we end this is we send our condolences to Charlie Kirk's family and friends and all of his supporters, all of the people that admired his work. But also we send the condolences to the system which enables people to succumb to political violence like this. And what Joey and I have wanted to communicate throughout this, and I very much hope we have done, is that we just want people to live in peace and safety more than anything. No one should be fearful for their own life because of their views, and it's a very dangerous element of society that we're in right now where we can't speak in that way. And I felt like when we were growing up it wasn't like that, but
couldn't have said it better myself.
Maybe it was, but I just don't remember it being like that.
I could not have said it better myself. Listen, people, I always use this opportunity to thank the members, because more or less every case that we cover nowadays is a member suggestion. Definitely one that I'm going to be very, very open and honest that I've been worried about covering. And I just hope that our intentions in covering this case are interpreted and taken in the right way.
100%.
Yeah.
We'll let the comments decide
on that one. Fucking hell, might be cancelled next week or something. Right, let's see. People, thank you very much for sticking around to the end of another video. We will see you all in the next one.